Nadine, we are having so much fun working with you. And I just thought I'd take the opportunity to ask you and pick your brain on all things talent acquisition because you have such an incredible insight in there. What are you hearing from talent acquisition leaders at the moment?
The most common question we're getting is around efficiencies. They're all being asked to do more with less, not so much about cost cutting anymore. Last year, we were seeing a lot of that, but it's all around smarter ways of working, AI, automation, changing the workflows to bring AI and automation in for those low-level tasks. A lot of the TA leaders, though, just don't know where to start to get that done. So I was talking to a client the other day and he said, we don't have a capacity issue, we've got a prioritisation issue. So that really struck me. I thought that kind of summed it up nicely. But another big thing that we're seeing is around TA having to prove their value to the business. And I think this is why Beamable is really resonating with some of our clients. It's around that ROI they can demonstrate to the business. It's not just enough for TA teams to fill jobs anymore. They're expected to deliver some impact to the business. I think TA has historically been seen as a service provider to the business, and we're seeing a lot more really needing to become much more strategic. So that's really around rethinking their operating model. I talk a lot about people advisory as well, which is evolving from talent acquisition to more of an advisory function and really using data to drive those decisions.
That's really interesting. How do you think about the ROI on a talent acquisition function?
Well, HR is notoriously bad at numbers and accounting. And historically, we've never been very good at it. But I do think that CPOs and CFOs are going to be working much, much more closely together in the new world. So ROI is hard to quantify because how do you quantify some of these subjective measures? So I think when it comes to that sort of stuff, we've really got to work out, well, what can we measure? And sales teams do it really well. Marketing teams do it really well. So it is possible. We're just probably not measuring the right things to start with.
Right. And I think if we can get agreement on what types of work is creating value for the business, because we know that talent is a huge part of the value equation for performance in an organisation. If we can get agreement on what parts of talent acquisition are creating value, then we can start to measure what's our cost against that value creation.
Yeah, and I think we're all kind of agreed on what is creating value. And at TQ, we talk about these moments that matter in the process. And it's a case, so those moments that matter may not necessarily be the same for every company that we work with, but we will sit down with them and really map that process and go, okay, well, what do you want to be known for? What are the really important aspects for your company, your culture, how you want to be perceived in the market? And they may decide that, we really want to focus on the human element, or we really want an amazing application process. They're two very different things, right? So Beamable allows our clients to really be able to dig in and do some macro analysis on where people are spending their time and how much value is it adding to the business.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. We love being part of that story. Where do you see the efficiencies? Where are you seeing sort of the big themes around efficiencies for talent acquisition functions?
AI.
Yeah. No surprises there. What kind of work is it offsetting? Like what parts of the process are you saying it can find some really big efficiency gains through AI?
I think you hear a lot of different things from TA leaders that they're kind of, in one sense, they're overwhelmed by the options with vendors and things around AI, or they're overwhelmed with the agentic tools and AI that's coming at them through their own technology. So like their ATSs or their workdays and things like that. But the big efficiency gain, I think, is not necessarily just AI, but automation or really identifying those low value or highly administrative roles that can be done elsewhere. So whether that is automation or offshoring or a bot, whatever. But I do think that we have to be really careful to not automate everything. Just because we can doesn't mean we necessarily should. Again, I revert back to those moments that matter. You can automate an entire recruitment process if you wanted to, but it's not necessarily going to give candidates the best experience. While AI is what everyone's talking about at the moment, it's not necessarily right for every aspect of the process.
Yeah, love it. What kind of projects are you running at the moment with clients? What kind of stuff are you doing?
Good question. Okay. All right. So what kind of projects are we running with clients at the moment? Look, the bulk of them are around redefining TA operating models. So how are the TA teams structured? What roles stay in-house? What can be outsourced or what can be automated? And that's how we're using tech like Beamable. So we're using Beamable to map the work that these TA teams are doing and look for efficiencies. We're working with a client at the moment who, we've gone through a process with them, time and motion and whatnot, and they've realised that they're spending around 40% on their time on things that just weren't driving positive hiring outcomes. And that kind of insight is really a game changer for clients, right? So, and another key moment, I think, which I'll go back to our first question on, is around prioritising those human moments. As I said, we talk about these TQ moments that matter. And thinking about a client that we're working with at the moment, he said to me yesterday, we really want to focus our time on the moments that matter. So we're actually going to go back to the future and have recruiters sit in on every single interview again. So the challenge for them is making that work without compromising efficiency or candidate experience. Where Beamable would come in with that piece of work is that would help their recruiters identify where they should be focusing their time so they can be deeply involved in those hiring decisions and supporting hiring managers with that.
Yeah, brilliant. And we do need to make the most of the human time that we have. Time is the scarce resource for everyone, and obviously organizations pay for that time. So we really need to think very intentionally, don't we, about what our humans are doing, and now we've got options. So very exciting. And I thought it was really interesting. I love this question that we heard from one of our sort of joint clients this week, which was around everyone, leaders, has this capacity problem. But they said to their leadership team, is it really a capacity problem, or is it that people aren't focusing on the right things? So can you help us break that down a little bit? What does that mean? And what's your view on whether it's a capacity problem or a focus issue?
Look, I would say every company is going to be different. There's no doubt there's some TA teams that are majorly under-resourced. But I would say a lot of the clients that we're talking to are saying it isn't just about headcount. We've done as much as we can do on headcount with the volumes that we're dealing with. It's about focus. I know of one client of ours who cut their time to fill by 30% just by shifting work away from their recruiters and automating the screening process. So I think the real problem is that many leaders just assume that they need more people, when in most cases, or in many cases, let's say, they just need better allocation of work. As you know, we're using Beamable to help uncover where those opportunities lie, where that work is happening, and who or what should be doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's actually a lot of different levers. And when we're in a cost-constrained environment, it can help us get really clear on what those levers are, not just hiring new people to do the work. But first, we always need to get that really deep visibility into what people are doing. And I think that's what a lot of people are lacking today, is really a deep understanding of what are my people actually doing, and is there duplication of work up and down different roles and roadblocks from different processes and waiting on different people for information and all these types of things. So if we can get a really clear diagnostic of our current state first, then we know what levers we have to pull and make some decisions around that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about identifying those opportunities. It's not about, we want to know exactly what every recruiter in your team is doing day in, day out. It's about, we want to help your TA team have, more meaningful roles as well. Yeah. So where are they spending the time on these energy sapping activities that aren't adding any value to the process? by removing those, we're really making those roles more engaging, more exciting, more challenging, and more human.
Love it. Well said. So where will leading talent acquisition functions be in a year from now or even 5 years from now? If you had a crystal ball, what do you think?
I wish I had a crystal ball. I think 5 years is too far in advance with how quickly technology is changing. I mean, it would be really hard to say where we're at in 5 years. I do think that, TA on the whole is going to be always dealing with the same sorts of issues as we've ever dealt with, finding the right people at the right time. How do we find them as quickly as humanly possible? All of those sorts of things will always remain top of mind for a TA leader. But I would say in the next 12 months, at least, it's going to be about how are we really fully leveraging the AI available to us to automate those low-level tasks or those admin-heavy tasks. So things like scheduling or screening or even elements of the sourcing process. I would like to think that in less than 5 years, I really hope it doesn't take 5 years to get there, but I really hope that in less than 5 years, TA will be much more aligned to the business strategy and much more heavily embedded in the workforce planning or demand forecasting for the future. I would also like to hope that they're utilising predictive analytics to shape hiring before the demand even hits. I do think the teams that don't evolve to more of an advisory function will get left behind in due course. But I think the future of TA is about getting ahead of demand.
I think that what's really interesting is that the very work that we're talking about for talent acquisition in terms of where are the humans doing the work, how are we automating, how are we simplifying, how are we removing all those roadblocks, that's actually some expertise and advice that the talent acquisition function could be providing back to the business in terms of when hiring requests are made, or we do see leaders making decisions for extra resourcing to fill capacity gaps, actually talent acquisition then coming back to them and saying, well, is it best filled with a human, or how are you thinking about automation, the best way to get this work done, freeing up capacity with the current workforce that you have and optimizing that way. So there's huge opportunity for advice and for talent acquisition to play a role in the workforce of the future more broadly.
Yeah, I agree. I was talking to a client yesterday and we were talking about their talent acquisition operating model and how they want to go through this workforce optimization process with us and Beamable. And I kind of said to them, the problem statement that we're discussing is that you essentially have the same problem within the high volume business unit. So the end user of the service is having exactly the same problem as you. So we can do it on TA and that will help you, but it's not going to actually solve the revolving door of issues that you have in that business unit. So a phase 2 might be, let's actually take that to the business and do exactly the same exercise for those, 1,000 FTE over there and really work out why are people not engaged? Why are people leaving the business? Why are people frustrated in their roles? And how do we make those roles more impactful, more meaningful, and, in due course, improve retention, attrition, and so on.
Yeah, brilliant. And what energizing work that would be for the talent acquisition team as well. Brilliant. Well, thanks so much, Nadine. Absolutely love working with you. And thanks for the conversation.